What's going on, everybody? Jean-Luc94 here. Welcome back to Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Today, guys, we're back on the Enterprise E, and we'll be working here with more paint and more masking. We're going to start off with our Vallejo light gray. We're going to be airbrushing certain areas on the model that require that color. Now, we have a lot of different parts and pieces to airbrush, so what I'm planning on doing is doing the majority of it in light gray, coming back through, masking, and then hitting certain areas with the silver gray. We do have a lot of exterior work to do though, so let me go ahead and show you a little close-up of where we're going to be painting. So all along the saucer section here, along the rim of the saucer, all of that should be light gray. The interior section right in here should be light gray, as well as this little bit of a swath right down the front of it. Starting here in the shuttle bay area, working all along this area and down the back, all the way to the pylons. And on the pylons, we need to go ahead and airbrush a couple areas. I think this needs to be cleaned up a little bit, and then the center section here, I think also has to be light gray. And if not, well, I can't really tell from the pictures and from the instructions, so we're just going to paint them light gray and continue with that. On the underside of the saucer, again, perimeter has to be painted. All of this right in here, light gray. We also then have to move into the other bands here. So right in this area right in here, and then of course in the middle section right there, that all has to be light gray as well. All right, everything is airbrushed in the light gray color, and I think it's looking pretty decent. Now, I'm hoping that this isn't too blue or too dark. I don't know really how this is all going to pan out. It looks a little darker than what I had envisioned it to look like, so I'm a little concerned about that. But I'm going to push on and we'll see what happens. Next, we have to go ahead and airbrush a few more areas with a darker gray so that we can go ahead and have a nice contrast. I'm going to be using this right here, this Gunzy color. We're going to be moving right into the kind of flattened section of the saucer, and then a little bit on the underside of the saucer next to the engineering hull. So let's go ahead and mix this up and airbrush that. We'll be right back. All right, guys, we are finished with that. We have the darker gray right in this little flat band right there, and then we airbrushed the area right here next to the engineering hull, and then a bit on the engineering hull itself. I think this is pretty decent. So now this has to dry, and we're going to start masking off all these different areas to then begin to come back through and hit it with the silver gray. So on to the masking. All right, so talking about masking, this is the little easier masking we have to do now. There's no aztecing involved with this. What we're going to be doing is taking Tamiya tape, and we're going to be covering up all the areas that were required to stay the light gray color. Because my next step after this is to come back through with the silver gray and airbrush the whole thing with silver gray. We're going to have a lot of work to do in terms of pinstriping and all of that as well with the silver gray. But for right now, we're just going to do a general mask so that we have the majority of the colors blocked off. So I've stuck down a little bit of Tamiya tape here. And one way we can go about doing this, since there's a large area to mask, is we can use our X-Acto knife and we can actually cut the masks while they're on the model, making just a few cuts here and there, and then kind of burnishing down the edges. As you can see here, I have a little bit of a line burnished in. I'm just going to slice it with my hobby knife, being very, very careful. Once I reach the end of that, I can just pull this up, and we have ourselves a mask. Now, I don't like this idea, though. There is an easier way to do this. This is just one particular way you can mask, but it does require using a hobby knife, and I don't really want to destroy my paint. So let me show you a different way. What we're going to do is we're going to take some Tamiya tape and we're going to stick it down to our masking cutting board. And what we're going to do is we're going to start making slices in it. Let me get a couple pieces here. There we go. Tamiya tape works very well for this. And we're going to go ahead and slice thin slices all along the tape. That should give us a good edge for our masking. And then we'll take some other tape and fill it on the inside. So let me go ahead and show you what we can do. All right. So what I've done here, just to give you an example, I've masked off half of the outer edge. I think it looks pretty decent. So I used my Tamiya tape and I used this. This is actually frog tape. It's for painters, but it works pretty much the same as Tamiya, at least for certain applications. So what I've done here is I laid down a couple of bands of tape using my ruler. I sliced in with my hobby knife and I made strips, thin strips, a little thicker strips. And then I started working my way from the back of the saucer all along to the front of the saucer. Now I'm going to start from the front of the saucer and work my way to the back. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use our pin vise and we're just going to lift up. Let's see, it's this one. We'll use this one right here. Lift up one piece of tape and we'll just shift this around here. Let's get a good position. And we're going to be working here on the interior edge here of this outer band. Using my thumb, I'm going to stick this down on the corner and then I'm going to slowly work millimeter by millimeter around the saucer section, sticking it down as I go. It's kind of tedious, but it works. Once I reach the end of that tape, I can then simply come back. Using my X-Acto knife, I can slice off any excess that I don't want here on the end. I'll grab my tweezers and just take this piece right up. There we are. And then we can use this to go ahead and cap this end right here. Right, that looks pretty good. I like that. So then what we can do is take our hobby knife again, and we can just slice off the area to clean it up a little bit, and we should be good to move on to the next area. And this is all we're going to do. We're going to go along the perimeter of each section and then cover in the middle section. Now we're working along here on the edge of the saucer, bit by bit. Very, very tedious and slow work, but far quicker than doing any aztecing. And once I reach the end of that, I'm going to come back through, kind of burnish it down a little bit, and move on to the next piece. And I'm just going to repeat the same process for every single area that needs to be masked, at least to cover up that light gray. We're basically outlining the area with tape, and then we're going to fill in the inside with larger pieces. And this is a really good way to go ahead and to make sure that your edges that are curved stay nice and sharp and clean. All right, guys, I've been working here off camera. As you can see, I have a completed underside mask of the saucer section. We've also worked a bit here on the engineering hull. This is a little easier because it doesn't require such fine control. Here on the saucer, it does. We've also masked these little areas right in here. I did that with just some masking tape, so most of this is done. Now we have to come back and we have to use the silver gray and airbrush over the entire section. But we're not done masking yet. We have to continue and make sure this is all burnished down and then move on to the engineering hull. And then after that, then we have to go ahead and cut right in along the engineering hull and saucer section. And then here on the other side as well, right along that line. And there's a little bit of a strip that needs to be the silver gray on the bottom and on the middle of that. Then here on the top of the actual engineering hull and then the saucer as well. All of this has to be masked. So we have a lot of masking to do. I'll use the same technique on the top side as I did on the bottom side, using some thin Tamiya strips to go ahead and end in that nice clean edge and then fill in the fields with the larger frog tape. On the back side here, I'm not sure what to do with that. I'm gonna have to look at my instructions, but I think we are pretty decent here. Let's continue and push through, try to get a little bit more done for you. So this is just really kind of a quick update. It's not going to be finished for you here on camera today. We're going to just push on, continue masking the engineering hull, and then we'll move ourselves up to the top of the saucer section, and then we'll be ready for paint. So hopefully, if I can find enough energy to sit down on this bench and push myself through all of this masking, we'll be back next episode to go ahead and show you the finished mask, and then go ahead and start airbrushing the silver gray. That's at least my plan. Not sure if it'll work exactly how I envision it, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed watching this so far. This has been a huge project. I'm really excited though to see it finished. Hopefully the light gray isn't too dark. We'll have to see once I start getting the other sections unmasked and the silver gray put on. It's got a lot of work left to do. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you back here next week on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Until then guys, happy modeling and we'll see you soon.